Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy CarameloBX, man. Welcome to a new segment or a new I don't even know what you would call it. Basically, let me give you guys a little rundown of what we are looking at right here, right? I want to start doing something new on Fridays. Fridays specifically. I don't know if I want to call it Mystery Fridays or Learn Something New Fridays, Factual Fridays. I don't know. All I know is that every Friday I want to watch something different than what we normally do, and it needs to be something like interest. Hey, it needs to be something like interesting. Needs to be something like a mystery, something that we don't really know much about. That's basically what this is. If you guys are wondering what's all this stuff right here on the screen, like all of this, we're about to learn about it, like in depth too, because I only know about like the Titanic, 9/11, and a little bit of like Boston bombing. I don't know too much about everything else. So without further ado, let's get straight into it, bro.
The sinking of the
Let's learn
RMS
something.
Titanic
Let's learn
occurred on
something.
April 15th, 1912, when the British passenger liner
1912?
was sunk in the North Atlantic Ocean during its voyage to New York City. The ship, built by the White Star Line, was the largest and most luxurious of its time, and was considered unsinkable due to its advanced safety features, including 16 watertight compartments. However, these compartments did not extend high enough to fully prevent flooding in the event of a breach. On the night of April 14th,
Yeah, because they weren't expecting it.
PM,
They call it the
Titanic
unsinkable
struck
ship.
an iceberg. This iceberg scraped along the ship's starboard side, creating a series of small punctures across several watertight compartments. Although the ship initially appeared stable, it soon became clear that the first 5 compartments were flooding, more than the ship could stay afloat with. Over the next few hours, the Titanic began to sink, and despite distress calls, the nearest ship capable of assisting, the Carpathia, was too far away to arrive in time. The sinking was worsened due to a shortage of lifeboats, as there were only 20 on board, which was enough for only half of the passengers and crew, and this was due to outdated seagoing regulations. Additionally, many lifeboats were launched only partially filled, as many people hesitated to leave the ship. Out of approximately 2,224 people on board, only 706 survived, with this disaster claiming the lives of over 1,500 passengers and crew members, most of them being from the ship's lower class compartments, and also crew who had less access to lifeboats. Of course. The sinking of the Titanic remains one of the
some things never change, bro. Of course, all the rich, wealthy people are the ones who made it out alive, and the poor underclass. That's how it goes, bro. That's unbelievable. Wow, that's crazy, bro.
In history that have occurred in the ocean, and it led to many changes
I didn't know that many people
safety
died.
regulations, including requirements for sufficient lifeboats and the establishment of the International Ice Patrol to monitor iceberg threats in the North Atlantic. The Halifax explosion occurred on December 6, 1917, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and remains one of the most devastating explosions in history. The disaster began when 2 ships collided in the narrow Halifax harbor: the French cargo ship Mont Blanc and the Norwegian ship Emo. The Mont Blanc was loaded with highly volatile materials, including TNT, benzol, and picric acid. As the 2 ships maneuvered through the harbor's narrows, miscommunications and navigational errors led to a collision. The impact ignited the explosions on the Mont Blanc, and the crew, realizing the incoming danger, abandoned the ship, but the burning vessel drifted towards the busy waterfront, drawing in a crowd of onlookers unaware of the danger. At 9:04 a.m., the Mont Blanc exploded with catastrophic force. The blast leveled much of the northern part of Halifax and the neighboring community of Richmond. The explosion released an estimated energy equivalent to 2.9 kilotons of TNT, creating a powerful shockwave that shattered windows as far as 50 miles away and generated a massive tsunami in the harbor. Over 2,000 people were killed, including many children and workers in nearby factories and homes. Approximately 9,000 people were injured, some blinded by flying glass or trapped under debris. The explosion also destroyed 12,000 buildings, leaving thousands of people homeless. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and relief efforts were quickly mobilized from across Canada and the United States.
That's what
the
it
Halifax
looked like.
explosion prompted significant advances in emergency management and disaster response, and it remains a defining moment in the city's history. The Holocaust was the systematic state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany and its collaborators during World War II. It began with the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in 1933, whose anti-Semitic ideology blamed Jewish people for Germany's economic problems and portrayed them as a threat to the Aryan race. After gaining power, the Nazis implemented increasingly oppressive laws, such as the Nuremberg Laws of 1935, which stripped Jews of their rights, and launched a campaign of widespread persecution. The situation worsened after the outbreak of World War II in 1939,
that was a
when
crazy
Nazi
time
Germany
in this
began its
world, bro.
conquest of Europe. Jews in occupied territories were rounded up and forced into ghettos under horrible conditions, and in 1941, Nazi leaders initiated the final solution, which was a plan to exterminate the Jewish population. This led to the construction of extermination camps such as Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor, where millions of Jews were systematically murdered in gas chambers. Aside from Jews, the Nazis targeted other groups that they deemed undesirable, including Romani people, disabled individuals, Slavs, political descendants, and LGBTQ individuals. The Holocaust brutality extended to...
Oh my gosh, bro, look at how skinny these guys are. Dude, they're malnourished. Wow. Like, isn't it crazy to think that this actually happened at one point in life? Like, this really happened. That's
mass
so
shootings,
crazy,
death marches,
bro.
forced labor, starvation, and medical experiments, leaving millions of victims dead or deeply scarred. By the time the Holocaust ended in 1945, with the Allied forces liberating the concentration camps, approximately 6 million Jews, 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population, had been killed. In addition, 5 million non-Jewish victims perished as well, and the Holocaust remains one of the most horrific atrocities in human history, with the survivors' testimonies serving as a reminder of the dangers of hatred and intolerance. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, the United States dropped the bombs to hasten Japan's surrender and avoid a costly invasion, as the Pacific War had been prolonged and brutal, with Japan showing no signs of surrender. On August 6, 1945, the US dropped an atomic bomb, codenamed Little Boy, on Hiroshima, which was a major Japanese military and industrial hub. The bomb, containing uranium-235, detonated at 8...
Bro, like, if you really think about it, like, I'm gonna be honest, I learned a little bit about, like, the bombing of Pearl Harbor in high school. Just a little bit. I really don't remember much. That was, like, so many years ago. But you think about it, like, I think Japan basically bombed, like, a boat or something that we had, and it killed, like the people that were on board and whatnot. I don't really know exactly what happened. All I know is that for the US to come back and bomb an entire city, and not only one but two, is crazy, bro.
8:15 a.m., releasing an explosion
Like, look at that
equivalent to about
cloud.
15 kilotons of TNT. The blast obliterated the city, instantly killing an estimated 70 to 80,000 people, with many more dying from injuries and radiation sickness in the days and months that followed, bringing the death toll to over 140,000 by the end of 1945. The intense heat and radiation caused horrific burns, while the shockwave leveled buildings, leaving survivors with long-term health effects. 3 days later, on August 9th,
3 days later! I didn't know they were that close to each other. Wow, only 3 days?
United States dropped a second bomb called Fat Man on Nagasaki, a city with significant industrial importance. This plutonium bomb was even more powerful, with a yield of about 21 kilotons, though the city's mountainous terrain limited the destruction. An estimated 40,000 people were killed instantly, with the total number of deaths reaching around 70,000 by the end of the year. The bombings prompted Japan to surrender on August 15th, 1945, and officially bringing World War II to an end.
Bro, could you imagine, like, what the US has right now? If this is what they were cooking up back in in the 1940s, just imagine what they have now, bro. I wouldn't even want to imagine what they have now. They probably have something to take out an entire country. Like that, dude, that's insane,
events
bro.
raised ethical debates about the use of nuclear weapons and sparked the Cold War arms race. In total, the two bombings killed over 200,000 people and left lasting scars on Japan's landscape, health, and society. The survivors' suffering and the bombing's global impact continue to influence discussions on war and peace today. The Texas City disaster, which occurred on April 16, 1947, remains one of the deadliest industrial accidents in United States history. It began when a French cargo ship, the SS Grand Camp, docked in the port of Texas City and caught fire while it was being loaded with ammonium nitrate fertilizer, a highly explosive material commonly used in agriculture. The fire was discovered around 8 a.m. and despite efforts to extinguish it, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. As the fire intensified, the captain ordered the hatches sealed in an attempt to starve the flames of oxygen, but this proved to be ineffective. At 9:12 a.m., the ammonium nitrate ignited, triggering a massive explosion that obliterated the Grand Camp and sent a towering mushroom cloud into the sky, with the blast being heard up to 100.
Yo, look at that. Wait, I know he said Texas City, but like, where's that at exactly? Is that like near Houston? Is that near San Antonio? I don't know where that is. I never been in Texas, so I don't know. Wow, look at that, bro. That looks
150
crazy.
miles away. The explosion unleashed
150 miles away. Dude, how,
devastating
bro? How?
shockwaves,
Just
destroying
how?
nearby buildings, homes, and factories, and the docks were completely leveled, with nearby oil refineries and chemical plants catching fire, worsening the disaster. The explosion also launched flaming debris, including parts of the Grand Camp, into surviving areas, igniting further fires. A second explosion occurred the next day, when another ship, the
The
SS
next
Highflyer,
day?
also loaded with ammonium nitrate, detonated, and the combined blast resulted in widespread destruction across Texas City. This disaster killed an estimated 581 people, including firefighters, dock workers, and onlookers, and also injured over 5,000 more. Many of the victims were never identified, and the explosions left thousands of people homeless,
Were
with
never
hundreds of buildings being
identified.
destroyed, and also causing
Yeah, they
millions of
probably got
dollars in damage.
disintegrated.
The Bhopal gas tragedy, one of the world's worst industrial disasters, occurred on the nights of December 2nd to 3rd, 1984, in Bhopal, India. It began at the Union Carbide India Limited pesticide
India?
plant, where a highly toxic chemical called methylisocyanate, also known
What
as
the heck
MIC, was being
what the heck are they
stored
doing
in
in
large
India
quantities for
with
the
this
production
toxic
of
stuff, dude?
pesticides. Poor maintenance, faulty safety systems, and inadequate training of staff created dangerous conditions at the plants. On the nights of the disaster, water inadvertently entered a tank containing about 42 tons of MIC, triggering a runaway chemical reaction. The increase in pressure and temperature inside the tank caused a massive leak of MIC gas and other poisonous chemicals. The safety mechanisms designed to neutralize leaks, such as refrigeration and scrubbers, either malfunctioned or had been turned off to save costs. The toxic gas cloud spread quickly over nearby residential areas, where tens of thousands of people were sleeping. Many awoke coughing, choking, and with burning eyes, and panic spread as the gas caused immediate health effects, including nausea, breathlessness, and blindness. The dense slums surrounding the plants were particularly vulnerable, and within hours, thousands of people were dead, and chaos gripped the city as hospitals were overwhelmed. Official estimates suggest around 3,000 people died within the first few days, while subsequent estimates put the death toll at over 15,000 due to long-term health complications. An estimated 500,000 people were exposed to the gas, leading to chronic illnesses, respiratory issues, blindness, and birth defects in the years that followed. The Bhopal gas tragedy sparked widespread outrage and legal battles over corporate responsibility. Union Carbide faced international criticism, but survivors of this tragedy have struggled for decades to obtain adequate compensation and health.
For 30 years, they're still dealing with like the aftermath. 30 years later?
Care. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster
bro.
occurred on January 28, 1986, when NASA's shuttle exploded just 73
I remember
seconds
this.
after
I learned
liftoff,
about
killing
this.
all 7 crew members aboard. The launch took place at Kennedy Space Center in Florida and was highly anticipated because it included a schoolteacher who was set to be the first civilian in space. The disaster was caused by the failure of an O-ring, a rubber seal in one of the solid rocket boosters, and the shuttle was launched on a particularly cold morning, with engineers having raised concerns that the low temperatures could affect the O-ring's elasticity. Despite these warnings, NASA proceeded with the launch, and shortly after liftoff at 11:39 a.m., the faulty O-ring failed, allowing hot gases to escape, damaging the
those
external
guys straight to
fuel
their
tank.
death,
This led to
bro.
a catastrophic failure as flames burned through the tank, causing the shuttle to break apart in midair. The explosion was broadcast live on television, shocking the world, and all 7 crew members aboard Challenger were killed as the crew cabin plunged into the ocean. The exact moment of death is uncertain, but it is believed that the crew survived the initial breakup and lost consciousness during the descent. The Chernobyl disaster, one of the worst nuclear accidents in history, occurred on April 26, 1986 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat, Ukraine. The accident occurred during a late-night safety test on reactor number 4, which simulated a power outage to test the reactor's emergency systems. However, a combination of operator error and fundamental design flaws in the reactor led to a catastrophic failure. During the test, the reactor's power output dropped to near zero, and an attempt to recover it led to instability. Operators disabled critical safety systems, and the reactor went out of control. A sudden power surge caused an explosion in the reactor core, blowing off the roof of the building and releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. Fires broke out and radiation spread across Europe, particularly affecting Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. The explosion immediately killed 2 plant workers, and in the days that followed, 28 emergency workers, including firefighters, died from acute radiation sickness after being exposed to extremely high doses while trying to contain the disaster. In total, it is estimated that about 50 direct deaths occurred due to the explosion and radiation. However, the long-term effects were far more severe. Tens of thousands of people were evacuated from the surrounding areas, and the exclusion zone around Chernobyl remains uninhabited to this day. The
Wow.
radiation exposure has been linked to thousands of cases of cancer, particularly thyroid cancer and other long-term health issues. Estimates suggest
You know, it is really crazy that like there are places in the world that are just completely like abandoned. Like I know out in Pennsylvania there's a place called Centralia where I forget what exactly happened. Hopefully we can watch a video on that one day, where basically there's like an underground fire that like won't go out, and like they've tried everything to get the fires out, but that entire city of like Centralia or wherever it's called is like it's on fire to this day, and it's been on fire for years, and it's been completely abandoned ever since. So like nobody lives there. So like to think that same thing is going on with the surrounding areas where this like Chernobyl, I don't know how to say that, happened. Like imagine going there and just being surrounded by buildings that are completely empty, like not a single soul anywhere near that.
that the
Like
eventual
that's
death
scary,
toll from
bro.
radiation exposure could range from 4,000 to tens of thousands over the coming decades. The Columbine High School shooting, one of the deadliest school shootings in the United States history,
Sheesh.
took place on
This I
April
learned a little
20th,
bit about, but I don't know too
1999 in
much.
Littleton, Colorado. Two senior students, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, carried out a carefully planned attack that shocked the nation. Harris and Klebold had been planning the attack for over a year, amassing firearms, homemade bombs, and ammunition. On the morning of the attack, they planted bombs in the school's cafeteria, intending for them to explode and cause
Bombs?
mass casualties. When the bombs failed to detonate, they entered the school armed with semi-automatic weapons and
They were
began
about to
shooting
blow up the
indiscriminately. The
school?
attack started at approximately 11:19 a.m. as Harris and Klebold opened fire on students outside the school before moving inside. They roamed the
No
halls and library,
way.
shooting at anyone they encountered, laughing and taunting their victims. The pair also engaged in a brief gunfight with the police, who had quickly arrived on the scene. The shooting spree lasted about 47 minutes, after which Harris and Klebold retreated to the library and committed suicide. In total, 12 students and 1 teacher were killed, and 21 others.
Damn, bro. RIP all these people, man. That's so scary and sad, bro. Like these school shootings have been going on in the US way too long, bro. This was going on before I was born in 2000. This happened a year before, bro. Like, bro, we gotta stop with the school shootings, bro. The school threats, like they gotta stop,
Others were
bro.
injured by gunfire.
Too many people
more
are
suffered
dying
from
due to that,
psychological
bro.
trauma, and the Columbine shooting had a profound impact on the United States, leading to debates on gun control, school security, and the influence of violent
Damn.
media. It also sparked changes in how law enforcement responds to active shooter situations, and many survivors of this tragedy continue to advocate for stronger measures to prevent similar disasters. The tragedy of 9/11, occurring on September 11th, 2001, was a series of coordinated terrorist attacks carried out by the extremist group Al-Qaeda against the United States. It began with the hijacking of 4 commercial airlines by 19 terrorists, and at 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York
I didn't know
City.
it was 19
Just 17
terrorists. Damn,
minutes
that was a
later,
lot.
at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, another Boeing 767, struck the South Tower, and both buildings were severely damaged, with
and I'm sorry, I don't mean to pause it right in the middle of him trying to teach about this, but you know what's really, really sad about this? Like I've learned that the pilots that they had for Al Qaeda, they learned how to fly here in the U.S. So it just goes to show, like back in these times, because I know like TSA and all this like airport security that really became like a big thing after 9/11. Before, you could just literally walk on through. There was no metal detectors, there was no nothing from what I've heard. um it's just crazy to think like, bro, anybody can come into this country. Like maybe not right now with, like, Trump got some real strict laws going in effect and people getting their citizenship, but once upon a time, bro, anybody could just come up in here and just do whatever they wanted, bro. So it's crazy to think like these people who cause all this damage and all this harm, they learned how to fly right here.
fires
Right in
igniting
the
on
States. I
multiple
learned how to fly.
floors. The attacks continued
That's
when American
crazy.
Airlines Flight 77, a Boeing 757, crashed into the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. The fourth hijacked plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was headed towards Washington, D.C., but passengers, aware of the earlier attacks, attempted to overcome the hijackers. The plane ultimately crashed into a field near Sharksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. It is believed that the hijackers intended to target either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed, followed by the North Tower at 10:28 a.m. The collapse of both towers caused massive destruction, including damage to surrounding buildings, and the eventual collapse of the World Trade Center complex. The attacks resulted in the deaths of 2,977
R.I.P.,
people,
bro.
including 246 on the 4 planes, 2,606 in the World Trade Center and surrounding areas, and 125 at the Pentagon. Thousands more were injured, and the aftermath led a profound impact on global security policies and led to the U.S. War on Terror, which included the invasion of Afghanistan. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill was one of the worst
R.I.P.,
environmental
bro.
disasters in U.S. history. It began on April 20th, 2010, when a blowout occurred on the Deepwater Horizon oil rig, which was drilling an exploratory well in the Gulf of Mexico. Owned by Transocean and leased by BP, the rig was situated about 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana. The blowout was caused by a surge of natural gas, which blasted through a concrete core that had been recently placed to seal the well. This gas traveled up the drilling pipe and ignited, leading to a massive explosion on the platform. The explosion killed 11
Damn.
workers on the rig and injured 17 others, and the rig burned for 2 days before sinking into the Gulf. Following the rig's collapse, the damaged wellhead continued to spew oil into the ocean for 87 days before it was successfully capped. By that time, it is estimated that 210 million gallons of crude oil had been released into the Gulf of Mexico. The spill caused widespread environmental damage, devastating oceanic ecosystems, harming wildlife, and polluting coastlines across 5 states. The region's fishing and tourism industries also suffered severe economic losses, and in response to this disaster, BP and the United States government initiated a massive cleanup effort involving skimming, controlled burns, and the use of chemicals to break up the oil. In the aftermath, BP and its partners faced multiple lawsuits, and BP paid billions in fines, penalties, and settlements. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster occurred on March 11th, 2011, following a massive earthquake and tsunami off the coast of Japan. The magnitude 9.0 earthquake,
this was
the
on
most
the news
powerful
when I was
ever
a kid.
recorded in Japan,
I think I was like
triggered a
12
series
or
of large
something when this
tsunami
happened.
waves, some reaching up to 40 meters in height. These waves overwhelmed the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant located in the Fukushima prefecture, operated by the Tokyo Electric Power Company. The tsunami flooded the plant, knocking out its power supply and disabling its cooling systems, which were essential for preventing overheating in the nuclear reactors. Without cooling, the reactors began to overheat, leading to 3 nuclear meltdowns over the next few days. Hydrogen gas built up in the reactor buildings, resulting in explosions that released radioactive materials into the air. The surrounding area became heavily contaminated, forcing the evacuation of over 150,000 people, and although there were no direct deaths from the radiation exposure in the immediate aftermath, the disaster's long-term health impacts are still being studied. However, it did cause stress-related deaths, especially among the elderly, due to the evacuation and subsequent displacement. Estimates suggest that around 1,600 people died from these indirect causes. The release of radioactive material also contaminated land, water, and food supplies, and the government designated a 20-kilometer exclusion zone around the plants. The cleanup process is ongoing and expected to take multiple decades, with significant challenges in decontaminating the reactors and storing radioactive waste. In the aftermath, the disaster prompted global scrutiny of nuclear safety, leading to reactor shutdowns and revised safety protocols in many countries. In Japan, the Fukushima disaster severely undermined public trust in nuclear energy.
Now, I mean, I'm not informed on like nuclear power plants and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously it's really dangerous, especially if something goes wrong and they blow up, like, you know what I mean? But I don't really know what they're for. Like, what exactly do they do? You know what I mean? Like, what is the purpose of having a whole plant, like a nuclear plant, like plant? Like, what is the point of that? If one of you guys can let me know down below, I have no idea. I never knew what those are meant for. And I'm kind of curious now because I know I'm assuming every country has one of those things, or I'm not really sure how that works. I'd be lost.
And led to the temporary shutdown of all nuclear plants in the country. The Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting occurred on December 14th, 2012 in Newtown, Connecticut, and remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in United States history. The tragedy began when Adam Lanza, a 20-year-old local resident,
of course, just look at him, bro. Look at him. He looks like he would do something like that. Unbelievable. Elementary school kids, bro. Little kids, man. Innocent.
resident shot and
Oh
killed
my
his mother at their
gosh,
home
bro.
before driving to Sandy Hook Elementary School.
He killed their parents or killed his mom before. Yeah,
Armed with an assault
that
rifle
dude
and other
definitely had
firearms,
issues, bro.
Lanza forced his way into the school by shooting through a glass window near the entrance. Once inside, Lanza opened fire on students and staff, and in the span of just 5 minutes, he killed 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7, along with 6 adult staff members.
Bro.
The staff included teachers and the principal, who tried to protect the children, and in the chaos, some children and teachers managed to hide, preventing further casualties. Lanza ended the massacre by taking his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot when police arrived at the scene. The shooting sent shockwaves across the country, igniting a fierce debate over gun control and school safety. It also led to widespread calls for legislative reform to prevent similar tragedies. In the aftermath, President Barack Obama and other political leaders pushed for stricter gun control measures, including background checks and bans on assault weapons. However, significant national legislation failed to pass, although some states implemented tighter gun laws. The Sandy Hook
is Sandy Hook, is that elementary school even up and running still? Like, I would imagine not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how would you keep a school like that even running, knowing what happened there? Like, that, dude, that's actually, I'm gonna have to look that up, bro. That's mad scary. Like,
shooting had a profound and lasting impact.
See, like, look, I'm sorry, I know we're almost done with the video, but like, for me, like, I live in an area where things like this don't really happen because I don't really live in a like predominantly like white area. Like, I don't want to. I mean, I don't know how to really like explain it, but in my area, there's a lot of Hispanics. There is a lot of, actually, yeah, I think just a lot of Hispanics, Black people. I think, yeah, that's. I mean, at least in my city, that's mainly what's over here is Hispanics and Black people. So we don't really see stuff like this happening. You know what I'm saying? This is more up a different kind of people's alleys. It's not really up ours, but yeah, I couldn't imagine hearing about this happening somewhere where I live, bro, because this is actually mad scary. Like,
on American
damn,
society,
bro, RIP all those
especially in how
innocent
schools
people, man.
approach
Elementary
security
school,
and how to
Columbine,
properly
any
prepare for an
school that this
emergency
happens
like
to, bro.
this. The victims are remembered annually,
RIP,
and the Sandy
bro.
Hook Promise Foundation was created to advocate for gun violence prevention. The Boston Marathon bombing took place on April 15th, 2013.
I remember watching a movie about this with
Two
Mark
homemade
Wahlberg.
bombs were
This story is
detonated near
actually
the finish
super
line,
crazy.
causing widespread devastation. The bombs, made from pressure cookers filled with shrapnel, exploded about 12 seconds apart in the crowded spectator area, killing 3 people and injuring over 260 others. Many of the injured suffered severe wounds, with several people requiring amputations. The perpetrators were later identified as 2 brothers, ethnic Chechens who had lived in the United States for several years. The bombing triggered a massive manhunt as law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and local police, searched for the attackers. A breakthrough came on April 18th when the 2 brothers killed a police officer during their escape attempt. They later carjacked a vehicle, leading police on a high-speed chase and engaging in a shootout in the Boston suburb of Watertown. During the confrontation, one of the brothers were killed, but the other managed to escape. A citywide lockdown followed, and on April 19th, the surviving brother was found hiding in a boat in a Watertown backyard and was arrested. He was later convicted on multiple charges, including using a weapon of mass destruction, and was sentenced to death. The bombing shocked the nation and raised concerns about domestic terrorism, and the attack also led to enhanced security measures at large public events. The Las Vegas shooting, also known as the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting, occurred on October 1st, 2017, and remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in United States history. The massacre took place during the Country Music Festival on the Las Vegas Strip with over 22,000 attendees. The shooter, a 64-year-old man from Nevada, opened fire from the 32nd floor on the Mandalay Bay Hotel, where he had set up an arsenal of firearms. The shooter had checked into the hotel several days earlier, bringing with him 23 guns, many of which were equipped with bump stocks, devices that allow
See, like, how do you even get a hold of that many like ARs? And the craziest part is I watched a video a long time ago about like the footage of the hotel, and like every single day he was walking in and out of the hotel. But every time he came back with more luggage. Like, I don't know how no one saw that as sus, bro. How is it that every day you leave this hotel and you keep the same room and you just come back with more and more and more and more luggage? Like, That
automatic
wasn't
weapons
sus to
to fire more
anybody. Like
rapidly. At
nobody ever
approximately
reported that or
10:05
anything.
p.m., during singer Jason Aldean's performance, the shooter began firing into the crowded festival grounds below, unleashing more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition. The shooting lasted for about 10
1,000
minutes as
rounds.
panicked concert goers tried to flee the scene. In total, 58 people were killed in the attack, and over 850 others were injured,
58
either by
people.
gunfire or in the chaos
Damn,
that
bro.
ensued. The shooter's motivations remain unclear, as he left no manifesto or clear explanation for his actions, and despite extensive investigations by the FBI and local authorities, no conclusive motive was determined. After the shooting, he took his own life before law enforcement breached the hotel room, and this shooting renewed debates over gun control, particularly the use of bump stocks, which were subsequently banned by the Trump administration in 2018. In the aftermath, the Las Vegas community came together under the slogan Vegas Strong to support the victims, their families, and the survivors of this horrific attack. Thank you very much for watching this video, and
Oh man, bro. Hey, look, I ain't gonna lie. I think what gets me every single time is like the school shootings and like when there's ever like mass shootings. Like I remember when I heard about that one shooting, this white dude went up to this church and inside the church it was like a predominantly like black people church and he went in there and I think I remember the story. He went in, he sat in the back just like watching. And these people, like obviously, it's a church. They pay no mind to it. Everybody's normally welcomed at a church, and you don't expect things like this to happen there. And then boom, he just started unloading fire, bro. And it's like stuff like that is so sad and so scary because like you never know what people are capable of. Like you really just don't. You don't. But hey, man, shout out Jadon History. I subscribe to him, bro, because I ain't gonna lie. I've seen some of his videos before, and I really like the way that he puts these things together. As you guys can see, we just covered a whole lot of stuff that I didn't know. Maybe you guys knew, but I didn't know a lot about it, and we covered it in about 22 minutes, man. So, shout out to Jadon History. He's doing his thing over here, and you know what I'm saying. This was a very informative video, very sad, but we learned something today. So. Hey man, as I said before, we're gonna do this about every single Friday now. I definitely want to watch something that's interesting, something that's mystery, something that we don't know about. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys subscribe as it helps support the channel. Like the video if you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time, man. Peace.